Well, hello there. Welcome back to the study. Glad you could join me today. I apologize that it's been a while since I've uploaded. I know I put out my schedule for uploads last time and didn't really stick to it. So I apologize for that. Part of the reason that I was a little delayed in uploading this one is because I was having a little trouble deciding what to cover on this one today. And it's not because of a lack of things that I could do, it's because of an overabundance of things that I could cover. I'm reading a lot of different books right now. I'm reading, just started Magician's Nephew and the Chronicles of Narnia again. I'm reading The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm reading the second volume of Tolkien's Unfinished Tales of Middle-earth. I am reading the poetry book. I'm also reading what I'm going to be covering with you today, a book by George MacDonald by the title Phantastes. And if you're a fan of the Inklings, Tolkien, Lewis, the others who were a part of that group, then you probably are familiar with the name George MacDonald. George MacDonald was, I believe he's been referred to as the grandfather of modern fantasy. And I've been looking a little bit more into the Inklings and kind of where their sources of inspiration came from, who they all were. And one theme that runs through them all is that there's this kind of shared inspiration from George MacDonald. So I wanted to read some of George MacDonald for myself, see where this comes from. And so I've been doing that. I've been reading through Phantastes. Interesting book. Not one I probably would choose to read. If I was going to be completely honest with you. It has a very Alice in Wonderland kind of feel. Just so you're aware, which that's not necessarily a knock against it. I'm just it's not really my thing, but I can definitely see how it had an influence on the Inklings, especially C.S. Lewis. I find a lot of things that C.S. Lewis does in Chronicles of Narnia that even just through a read through of Phantastes, I'm on page 92 of the edition I have, which is the Kindle edition. I'm already finding a lot of correlations. So that's interesting. But I wanted to read you a selection from Phantastes today. And part of the reason I want to is, like I said again, I wouldn't probably naturally want to read this book personally. But there are elements of interest in it. There are some things in it that I'm kind of like, that's just interesting, bizarre, kind of weird, but interesting nonetheless. And I'm at the point where the main character has arrived at a castle, and it seems almost to be abandoned. But it's this castle in the land of Faerie, and it's full of just interesting things. It's beautifully described. But one of the rooms in the castle is a library, and as he's talking about the books in the library, he makes an interesting comment on them that I want to share with you, because I think we could find this a fairly relatable kind of digression on books and the power that books have. So I'm going to read this to you, and then I'll make my comments on it at the end. So this is from Phantastes, and it says, one peculiarity of these books, or at least most of those I looked into, I must make a somewhat vain attempt to describe. If, for instance, it was a book of metaphysics I opened, I had scarcely read 2 pages before I seemed to myself to be pondering over discovered truth, and constructing the intellectual machine whereby to communicate the discovery to my fellow men. With some books, however, of this nature, it seemed rather as if the process was removed yet a great way further back, and I was trying to find the root of a manifestation, the spiritual truth, whence a material vision sprang, or to combine 2 propositions, both apparently true, either at once or in different remembered moods, and to find the point in which their invisibly converging lines would unite in one, revealing a truth higher than either, and differing from both, though so far from being opposed to either that it was that whence each derived its life and power. Or if the book was one of travels, I found myself the traveler. New lands, fresh experiences, novel customs rose around me. I walked, I discovered, I fought, I suffered, I rejoiced in my success. Was it a history? I was the chief actor therein. I suffered my own blame. I was glad in my own praise. With a fiction it was the same. Mine was the whole story, for I took the place of the character who was most like myself, and his story was mine, until grown weary with the life of years condensed in an hour, or arrived at my deathbed or the end of the volume, I would awake, with a sudden bewilderment, to the consciousness of my present life, recognizing the walls and roof around me, and finding I joyed or sorrowed only in a book. If the book was a poem, the words disappeared, or took the subordinate position of an accompaniment to the succession of forms and images that rose and vanished with a soundless rhythm and a hidden rhyme. Now, he's talking about this experience that he's having in Faerie Land with these books to be quite literal. Like, he is entering into these stories and becoming the characters in the stories, or he's entering into these scientific or philosophical books, and he is tracing back the lines of arguments and the logic back to their original source, and it's interesting how he brings that image of getting lost in a book to life in this series of sentences, this rather long paragraph. But um, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because, I mean, this is quite literally getting lost in a book, and if you know the whole point of this readings in the study is to kind of share with you my own gleanings from getting lost in the books that I'm reading. Um, so, whether it's some volume of science or theology, or whether it's poetry, whether it's history, whether it's just a fantasy novel, I think we can all relate to this, that there is this sense of just getting lost in it. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you've been reading and reading, and you lose all sense of where you are, who you are, time, place, and you're just so engrossed in the story. And then all of a sudden you're snapped out of it by something, and you realize, oh my, it's like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and where did all that time go? So I find that interesting that he puts such a literal spin on it, but also just speaks to the experience of just getting lost in a good book. So, perhaps today you can join him in getting lost in some story or some other good book that would think that would be great. So, appreciate you sharing this time with me. I hope this was enjoyable for you, and until next time, I will see you then.